but the big song I know they did was called Cop Killa, which I always found funny considering that just after being done with Body Count, Ice-T becomes an actor on Law & Order. Just saying. As a cop, which makes me laugh my balls off every time I think of it.
News, reviews, interviews, and all things metal. From the Kensington Place Studios, it's According to Metal with Jason and Biv.
Welcome, folks, to another exciting, action-packed installment of the According to Metal podcast, where we talk news, reviews, interviews, and all things metal. We have an action-packed show for you, but let me just tell you a little bit about what's going on before I introduce you to my co-host extraordinaire. We have 3 album reviews, and you're thinking 3? Sometimes you guys do more than that. Well, I'll explain, but we got DGM's new album coming up, Devin Townsend Project's new album coming up, and of course, friends of the program and a guest on last episode, of course, Tony Piccoli, joined us from the band Imminent Sonic Destruction. We're going to review Triumphia, their most recent album, later on in the broadcast. We also have Triple B coming up, or is it Triple B coming up? You'll find out a little bit more about that here later on in the show. And speaking of Imminent Sonic Destruction, Biv and I got to check them out, as well as the great Circus Maximus in Chicago. So it's the first ever concert review that Biv and I do, as we got a chance to hang out in person and see some pretty killer bands. We'll share that with you later on in the podcast. And even later on in the podcast, joining us from LadyObscure.com and a friend of the program, though I'm not sure why, is Lacy Mucklow, who's going to be here talking to us about ProgPower concert that Biv and I really, really want to see in person, and we are vowing to you, according to Metalheads, that we will be there in person next year to hear our favorite bands, of course, in the great city of Atlanta. But Lacy was there, so she's going to be giving us a full report of what it is she saw down there, and can't wait for you to hear more about some of the bands and some of the people she got to meet and all that good stuff. But we'll talk that later on in the broadcast. And speaking of the guy who's going to be joining me in Atlanta soon, and the guy who joined me in Chicago to see him in Sonic Destruction and Circus Maximus, and of course that's one of many concerts Biv and I will be attending in the near future. Don't you worry. But Biv, what's going on, man? You ready to talk some metal?
Man, so ready. I mean, this might be the most exciting, at least for me personally, this might be the most exciting episode we've ever done.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And it sounds like, of course, we talked reviews, we talked interviews, and we're doing all that later on in the broadcast. But like we start every podcast out, we start out with the latest in metal news. And Biv said he's got tons of stuff to talk about. So Biv, without any further ado, you want to talk news, man, or what?
I have more news than Reuters right now.
All right, it's metal news. Here we go.
It's time to give you some headlines. The metal news you need to know right now.
Now, if this is your first time listening to the According to Metal podcast, shame on you. Go back and listen to the other episodes and catch up, and then you can come back to this. I'm just kidding. But we are friends before and after the podcast, I'm sure, hopefully, at least afterwards, unless we have a really bad breakup. But certainly before the podcast, we were friends, and one of the commonalities that Biv and I have always had is we are metalheads. And when you're metalheads and you're a metal fan, you talk metal, which is what we do on every episode, especially in the news segment. So we do not discuss any of this stuff prior to. Biv usually handles most of the news. He throws these things out and we discuss them in real time as I hear them for the first time. We talk like metalheads always do about the latest in metal news, which we'll do here. But actually, Biv, I have a metal story I wanted to share with you. It's not really, I don't know if it's newsworthy as much as you just made me kind of laugh out loud. So I just wanted to mention this to you. So we've talked about him on the show before. But interesting podcast that Danzig actually appeared on the first podcast ever he's ever been on, which is on Talk is Jericho. And he shared some interesting things on the podcast that I wanted to mention to you that I thought was pretty funny. We make fun of the fact that, you had mentioned, didn't you say that Blaze Bayley was the metal Elvis at one point? Or who did you say was the metal Elvis?
Well, with the chops, yeah.
With the chops,
Absolutely.
which he no longer has. But I said, even at the time, the real metal Elvis is Glenn Danzig. And so we kind of joked about it. Little did I know that he is an absolutely huge Elvis fan, like in real life. So much so that he is in the process of recording, and it's pretty much done. Glenn Danzig Sings Elvis, which will be out later on this year.
Well, he is one hell of a singer.
Yeah, and it's just, I just found it. I laughed out. I laughed out loud at the news that I'm like, he really is doing Elvis. Holy shit. I just found it funny.
I never liked Danzig as far as a band. It just wasn't my scene at that time.
Come on. Don't tell me you didn't listen to Mother time and time and time again when it was hot.
Oh, jeez.
And Twist of Cain and stuff like that.
But I will tell you, now, Glenn went on to do some other projects that I did thoroughly enjoy. But what I learned is that he has a voice that he really can sing.
Oh, yeah.
Now, whether he can pull off Elvis or not, I don't know.
I can't wait to check it out. I don't know if
but I will check it out.
Should we review that?
I think we have to.
I think we have to. I think that would be awesome to do. So, and quick trivia question. What is Glenn Danzig's favorite sport, if you had to guess?
If I had to guess.
And on top of that, something that if he wasn't a singer, he totally wants or wanted to do at one point in his life, but didn't feel he could.
I'd say soccer.
Wrong.
What is it?
Professional wrestling.
Wow.
Yeah, he's like a huge wrestling fan, like ridiculous. And it's the only reason he actually was on Talk Is Jericho, because he's like, here's a guy who's not only in music, but he's also a wrestler, and I'm a wrestling geek, and so I'd love to talk to a wrestler. So, I mean, and this guy's like a big time wrestling fan, not like, I'll watch, I'll watch Monday Night Raw every once in a while type of guy. I mean, this dude's like a local indie scene wrestler fan. Like this he doesn't take pictures ever. In fact, he's known for like basically threatening to beat the crap out of anybody who takes this picture in public. But he will take pictures all day with wrestlers. All day. Like, if he sees a wrestler he can hang out with, he'll totally want to take a picture with him. To me, I just found it funny. He hates baseball. He hates football. And he loves professional wrestling. To me, I found that pretty comical.
Well, especially since, he's from New Jersey. So, you would think baseball would be a big part of his life, but
not at all, man. He's a wrestling fan. So I just found that kind of interesting and kind of funny. Some stuff we didn't know about Glenn Danzig. I didn't know. I'm sure many of the listeners didn't as well. And again, coming soon to an According Metal podcast near you, Glenn Danzig Sings Elvis. Oh yeah, that shit's going to happen. But anyway, that's all the news I got. Biv usually handles the metal news. So Biv, what do you got this week, man?
Well, first of all, and this is one of those stories that when you first hear it, you go, is that newsworthy or not? But Gene Simmons, who is a media whore, as we all know.
Hey, be nice now. But he is a media whore.
No, I mean, come on now. He is. We all know it. But, he made a comment recently that those in pop music or rock music or whatever the case may be, celebrities in general, should not give their political views at all. In fact, he said, quote, they should shut their pie holes. Now, I don't know if he's, I know what he's gunning for. And he says that, people can greatly influence others just because they're like, oh, I like Taylor Swift and Taylor Swift likes, Hillary Clinton. Therefore, I should follow her lead. I get what he's saying. But by the same, I guess my question is, are we really that dumb? Are we really to the point where we're following a celebrity's lead on our political beliefs? And if so, what does that say about us as a society? But is he right? Is Gene right? Should they shut their pie hole? Or because they have a platform, should they be using that platform to further their own personal agenda?
Oh, man, this is a good topic. Good call, Biv. This is newsworthy, at least in my opinion. And this is metal, but it's not metal at all. It's just a general conversation, but it's a good one to have. That, to your point, I think, let's use your Taylor Swift analogy, your example. If you decide to vote or support a politician based on an artist of yours that you like that also supports that politician, you're a moron. And talk about questioning someone's ability to vote in the first place. It almost makes me want to, if I could, revoke your ability to vote, that you based your entire decision of who you're voting for because Gene Simmons likes or doesn't like a particular candidate. With that said, I will say, to Gene's point, that there are certain artists that you may like that, based on how politically outspoken they may be, make you not want to like them as much as an artist based on who they like politically. That sadly is truth. But if you're basing your opinion on who you support based on what the politician, or excuse me, based on what a musician or a celebrity is endorsing, then you're a moron. But, you know, I mean, there's a lot of people who, there's a lot of metalheads who, you know, and again, we don't talk politics on this show, but I will say that, like, you know, let's say you are a conservative or a Republican, let's say. There were tons of metal acts who were very, very outspoken about the Bush administration, like tons of them around the world. And then if you look at, you know, John Schaefer from Iced Earth, who's basically a libertarian. Phil Labonte, who's the lead singer for All That Remains, hardcore libertarian, and is very outspoken on Facebook. And, you know, I'm assuming there's a lot of All That Remains fans who are like, Phil, what the hell, dude? Like, why are you saying these mean things about Bernie Sanders? Or, you know what I mean? Like that. So I'm sure that has to piss off some of their fans based on how outspoken a particular, musician is, and vice versa. You know, I mean, you have that with, those who, you know, may be more right leaning, quote unquote. And again, I know that we have listeners all over the world who listen to the show, at least hopefully. So this may or may not be as applicable, but I'm betting it does. But, you know, if you're knowing, you know, when we're talking, you know, left or right here in the United States, you know, I mean, you may have some, you know, fans who are, you know, more right leaning, who, you know, may hear, you know, a particular, who's one, Scott Ian from Anthrax is very outspoken and very, I guess, quote unquote, liberal. I don't let their political beliefs get in the way of my fandom of them one way or the other. It doesn't make me a fan because you think a certain thing, and it doesn't not make me a fan because you think a certain thing politically. I think that's kind of shallow and stupid that you would no longer like. And that goes for all celebrities. That goes for, you know, I mean, you and I are big sports fans, same thing. You know, I think, you know, it's just dangerous water to tread there. If you are an athlete or a musician and you want to have the courage to stand up and say, screw this, I'm going to say something, go ahead and say it, but just know that it's at your own peril. You know, I mean, it could be at the risk of you pissing off some people. And if you're okay with that, go for it. But don't be surprised if it pisses people off and you're like, well, what the hell? Well, what do you think? I mean, unfortunately, which is why we don't talk politics on this show, because exactly that, you know what I mean? I'm sure there are things that I believe, well, hell, we talk about this as friends all the time, but there's a lot of stuff we don't agree on politically, but that doesn't make us A, not friends, and B, not people that don't have a ton of other things in common in which we find common ground on. You know what I mean?
Well, you and I have had some very, I'll call them heated disagreements over certain political issues.
Sure.
But, you know, we can always come back to the fact that we're friends.
Yeah.
When you don't know someone personally and you come out as a conservative or libertarian or liberal or whatever the fuck you are.